Hey there, Otaku! Are you into retro gaming? Are you into modern gaming? Are you into video gaming? Go Mega Otaku Gamer Alpha has new episodes, most Sundays, right here on this channel. Check them out. Hey there, Otaku! Ken-chan back with another episode of Go Mega Otaku Gamer Alpha. And this week we're going to have a look at the Nintendo 64. Okay, now the Nintendo 64 was a 5th generation console. It was released in Japan on June 23rd, 1996. In North America on September 29th, 1996. It was discontinued in Japan December 20th, 2001, and in North America August 20th, 2002. They sold just under 33 million units. The CPU is a 93.75 megahertz NEC VR4300. Almost 94 megahertz, not bad for 1996. The graphics unit was a 62.5 megahertz SGI RCP. The predecessor to the unit was the Super Nintendo Entertainment System, and the successor was the GameCube. Now, what had happened was Nintendo had to come up with a new system. The Super Nintendo was growing a little bit long in the tooth. They had been working with Philips on CD technology because they knew at some point they were going to have to get into that. They thought they could go another generation without doing that. They came up with the Nintendo 64. The Nintendo 64, of course, was a cartridge-based unit again. When everybody else was making CD-based units. And, of course, that in the long run ended up hurting Nintendo, despite what they might tell you now. The fact of the matter is, the Nintendo 64 was probably a mistake. Had Nintendo gone with a unit that was disc-based, they probably would not have gotten knocked off their top slot by Sony. That's pretty safe to assume that. The graphics on the machine were like nothing that had come before on a home console. They rivaled PCs. They were even better than a lot of the PCs and pretty much most of the PCs that were out at the time. And the system itself, of course, was very simple. And most of the parts for it were, very large. The controller was revolutionary and, of course, copied by Sony afterwards. And you could say improved upon. I don't know that it was an improvement. In the long run, probably it was an improvement. But anyway, let's take a look at the system. Now here we have the Nintendo 64, which originally was supposed to be called the Nintendo Ultra 64. But they decided to go with the Nintendo 64 name instead. The secret to this logo, for a long time, if you see or notice this logo, there's a secret to this that was recently revealed, and I'm not trying to do this as a spoiler for anyone, but you can find this information anywhere now. If you look at this very carefully, this logo, there are actually 64 polygons in it. That's the secret. That's why they went with Nintendo 64. Like these four little yellow things up here are 4. This green thing here is 1, this blue thing here is 1, this green thing is another. And if you go through and you count up all of these, if you wireframe it, you end up with 64 surfaces on this. Okay, and that's the big secret. The front, of course, has 4 controller ports. Okay, for 4-player local gaming. No internet capability, of course, at this point. Up here we have the old cartridge slot. Up in here we have... Okay, what was in here before was called a jumper pack. This is an expansion pack which doubles the memory of the thing and allows you to play games like Donkey Kong 64. I believe the Quake games require this, as they are, you know, twice the memory of a normal cartridge. Whatever. On the back, we flip her around here. We have a 1-800 number you can call if you want Mario to come to your house and put a screwdriver into this thing. Maybe shock himself a little bit, but he's super, so it won't hurt him. This is your port out to your television. It's a composite cable adapter. This is the power plug. This whole thing right here is actually the power. It's a brick that like plugs in here, and this is where it plugs in, and therefore all of the power management goes on outside of the unit itself. Here we have the power switch, and here we have a reset button. Pretty basic, pretty simple. Underneath here, they were supposed to release a 64DD or 64DD unit, and they did in Japan. It read what it did was it read magnetic tape, magnetic discs, similar to floppy disks that were still being used at the time. They were proprietary, of course, and Nintendo never, well, at this point anyway, didn't really use anything anybody else was doing. And of course, this slot right here was where the 64DD was supposed to plug in. Most of those games, of course, just got ported to cartridge, and they said, to hell with the 64DD. You know, you got your cooling down here. And that's your basic Nintendo 64 unit. Let's look at the controller here a second. The controller was revolutionary to an extent in that it incorporated a small analog stick. Now, analog sticks are nothing new, even at this point. Analog sticks, they had them with the Atari 2600. Okay, analog sticks were not invented by Nintendo. However, they were incorporated into a controller type unit in a fashion like this, that you could use it with your thumb instead of, your whole hand or something like that. You just use it with your thumb. These buttons were for whatever, action and jumping and things like that. Your start button here, rocker switch here for directional pad. These here served many purposes. They were programmable. You could put whatever for them. Sometimes they were strafing side to side or jumping or whatever, but oftentimes they were used as another stick, another directional type control scheme. Similar to this, only done with buttons. Turok 1 and 2 on the Nintendo 64 utilized this and this together to move the main character around, to move Turok around the play field to do his thing and to shift the camera, etc. And then, of course, on the sides here, we have the good old L and R buttons here and here. Underneath here, we have a trigger button made for easy gun games. If you're shooting something, you just hold it kind of like a gun type thing. And you had that, and you could use it like this with your other hand over here, or like this with the other hand over here, depending on what kind of game you had. This is where the memory cards go. They also have rumble packs that they put down here that would vibrate. The Sony system had their analog controllers that they copied, obviously from Nintendo, because their original control pad did not have anything like this. They decided to go and copy this and put 2 on theirs. Theirs had built-in rumble feature. This does not. You had to put in a rumble pack. I have one of those. Let's look at one of those. This is a rumble pack here. This is what they look like. Big, heavy chump of a thing. And it plugs into the cartridge slot, or not the cartridge slot, the memory card slot on the back here in a similar fashion that this does. And it makes your controller vibrate. Hip hip hooray! These are what the games look like. This is Mario 64. A little side note about Mario 64. Mario 64 was really the first game of its kind. A platforming hop and bopper that had free-flowing camera that allow you to go anywhere, do anything. It made for a slightly confusing experience for some. For others, it just made it longer. It just made it more, more fun. You could savor it longer. You could figure out what's going on and figure out where you are and wander around these huge worlds in real time, free-flowing real time. Just screwing around. You didn't even have to do anything if you didn't want to. But these were 8 meg cartridges. And that is why I'm also going to point out that a lot of the developers jumped ship during the Nintendo 64 era to go to Sony because of the small amount of space that they were given to work with, difficulty programming for this system. Nintendo at this point, like everybody who gets on top, they got sloppy, they got cocky. If anybody wanted a piece of the Nintendo pie, they had to do it Nintendo's way. Well, a lot of them said, no, we don't have to do it Nintendo's way anymore. Now they're Sony, we can go with them. And, of course, Nintendo ended up being their own worst enemy in this generation. Had they gone CD-based, I am convinced, beyond the shadow of a doubt, that Sony never would have had a prayer. And these were the launch games. These 2 games in 1996 is what they launched with. These 2 games. That's it. 2 games. Nintendo Super Mario 64, Pilot Wing 64. It was more than enough. They sold... They did a pretty good lifetime sales of the unit at 33 million units, although today that wouldn't be enough. That wouldn't be nearly enough. You need to sell twice that, at least, to be taken remotely seriously. This is a copy of Killer Instinct here, Killer Instinct Gold. Another good game. This game was actually in the arcades at the time. So now that we've looked at all that, let's look at some of the games.
It's me, Mario.
You can't review
Hello.
the Nintendo 64 without looking at Super Mario 64. You just can't do it. And even though everybody's seen this game a million times, let's look at it again. course, who can forget GoldenEye? This game actually was the first real decent first-person shooter on any system. I'll argue that with anyone. I'm sure that there is a lot of people that will agree with me on that. This was the first real serious hardcore first-person shooter. It looked good, it played good, it was awesome. Little bit of Killer Instinct for you. As I said, this was in the arcades at the time. This is Killer Instinct Gold.
Kim Woo. I like this guy's voice. Oh, that's some Kim Woo for you. Yes.
Now here's a little number that's a little bit more difficult to find for this system. It's Conker's Bad Fur Day. If you want to look up commercials for this game to get an idea of where this thing's coming from, go for it. He's a drunk squirrel. that has a fixation for poop. Yeah, for mature audiences only. Even though he is a squirrel, there's booze, there's cigarettes, there's throwing up, there's poop. Lots and lots and lots of poop in this game. Tons of it. And violence.
Stupid loco.
Yeah, they make you watch this crap. I'm not doing that. Oh, look, there's some poop. And you eat the chocolate bars to get health. Well, I'm healthy enough, but you're in a sewer here, but you eat chocolate to get healthy. Now he's wearing a little gas mask because I'm still walking around in poop everywhere. And there's little fart noises and there's bugs. Lots and lots and lots of bugs. But I got my frying pan. Oop. Ooh, that hurt. Anyway, some of you might be trying to eat, so let's go to something else. Okay, here's a little F1 pole position 64. Yeah, this kind of puts me in mind of virtual racing. If you're gonna drink and drive, drink and do this. Don't get behind the wheel of a real car. It's okay to drink all you want if you're gonna drive something like this. But that's the only way. Now here I am in the pit. Coming out. I pitted too early. Now I'm in last place. Ultimately, the Nintendo 64 is a must-have for any collection. If you collect video game systems, you have to have it. It has a ton of games. Despite the fact that the PlayStation was its main competitor, the PlayStation has more games. That's not really relevant. The games on the Nintendo 64, despite the fact that it has a lower polygon count than the Sony PlayStation, still look better. They do. They look better. A lot of them handle better. They got the jump on the analog stick thing, although the Sony stick probably ended up being a superior control scheme. And as it also became a standard, the Nintendo 64 did not. But the Nintendo 64 really is necessary for anyone's collection. You can't even call yourself a collector. It's like trying to be a video game collector without an NES or something like that, or an Atari. You have to have it. So I'm going to go ahead and recommend the Nintendo 64 to everyone, even people that aren't collectors. It's the Nintendo 64 from Nintendo.